Okay, so now we are moving on to the next level of airway. That level of airway is now going to be your first airway adjunct. To recap, we started with mask to mouth, and then we went on to bag valve mask, and now we're going on to an airway adjunct because bag valve mask, while great, does not give you a definitive airway. You need a more definitive airway if your patient has not started breathing on their own. So we have two ways to do this. We have an MPA, which goes in the nose, and we have OPAs. OPAs go in the mouth. Now, these can hold your airway open. They can help to hold your airway open. Does not mean that they fully hold your airway open, but they can help to hold your airway open. So, what we want to do is we want to select which one is appropriate. Now, which one is appropriate? In order to determine that, we need to find out if the patient has a gag reflex. If the patient has a gag reflex, then we're going to go with NPA. And NPAs are great because you can put NPAs in at any time. They can stay in even when the patient's awake. You don't even have to worry about taking them out. They may be uncomfortable when they wake up, but they can stay in. So, if the patient has a gag reflex, we want to start here. Now, how do you find out if a patient has a gag reflex without sticking your finger in their throat? One easy way is you can lightly run your thumb or your finger across their eyelid. If it flutters, then they have a gag reflex. The reason that those two correlate is because the gag reflex is an autonomic nerve that protects the throat, and the eyelids are autonomic nerves that protect the eyes. So they operate on the same system. So you've determined that your patient has a gag reflex. So we want to put in an NPA. You want to select the right size. You select the right size by looking at the tube. Is this tube going to fit in this patient's nose comfortably? Obviously, in Manny over here, Manny has two tiny nostrils that we do not have NPAs for. So we will not be sticking an NPA in his nose. But I will show you what to do. You open up your NPA. Make sure that it is the right size. If it is too big, you are not only going to cause nasal trauma, but you can stimulate the gag reflex by it being too large. So once you determine the right size, you're going to lubricate this with the lubricant in the intubation kit or in the airway bag, and you're going to insert it. You're going to insert it like this. You're also going to look for this bevel. As you can see, there is a bevel at the end. This bevel needs to be facing toward the septum. Now, the easiest way to remember is it's always on the right because these are all made the exact same. That bevel's going to be on the right. So you want to look at the bevel and you want it here. Now, you're going to lubricate and you're going to insert it into the nose. You're going to insert it straight down into the nose until this trumpet is flush with the nostril. And you're going to leave it there. Unless you get any kind of trauma or anything, then you obviously need to take it out. You're going to leave it there, and then you're going to reattach, and you're going to continue to breathe. This is going to help the air deliver better into the lungs. It's not definitive. It doesn't mean it's going to just magically make the air get there. We still need to think about head tilt and all our other skills we learned in CPR. This is just to help keep the airway open. Now, if the patient has a gag reflex, does not have a gag reflex, then we can use one of these. Yes, there's a whole bunch of different sizes, and they look like this. These are OPAs. As you can see, there are a whole bunch of different colors. Which color is right for your patient? Well, you simply take this, you hold it next to their cheek, and you see where it lines up. We want this to go to the base of the tongue to try to keep the tongue from occluding the airway. So obviously, this is not going to go to the base of his tongue. This is more likely to go to the base of his tongue. That's what you're looking for when you measure. Now, again, Manny's mouth is too small for me to insert this, so we're just going to have to use a little imagination. What you're going to do is you're going to take your OPA and you're basically going to fish hook toward the cheek. Once you get it toward the cheek, you're going to rotate it to where it's going to face like this. And what this does is it helps to hold the tongue away from the back of the throat, which will help to keep your airway open. I say help because, again, nothing is perfect, especially in medicine. Once you get your OPA in, you continue your respirations, and hopefully you can transport either in this state or no gag reflex means we can move on to the next adjunct, which we will discuss in the next video.